Oh, hello again, everybody. And a photo bomb from Brian Kunderman, Assistant Athletic Director at St. Louis U. Boy, they're all publicity hounds, aren't they? Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Ramsey. That's Matt Roccio. And welcome to the two-man game. And Matt, right off the bat, special guest Director of Operations for St. Louis U men's basketball, Michael Wilson. Mike, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great. So, Rock, we got our official preview as the Billikens. We'll jump right into the NIT. We're going to take our sheet, throw it out for the show. And, Mike, as we jump right into this, Northern Iowa comes in NIT. This is an explosive offensive team. It's going to be a real challenge.
It's great. I mean, you always want to play meaningful basketball in March. And, the NIT is a prestigious tournament. And, you're always fighting to get to New York. And, a team like Northern Iowa, who's got a guy who's two-time player of the year in their league and who averages over 20 points a game, it's a big challenge.
Yeah, and their offense is something you guys haven't seen all year. It's kind of a 5-out, and it's crazy.
Yeah, it's different for sure. We play teams who have shooting big men, but they're just very, very different. And a couple days of practice, you hope you prepare, but it's obviously something different.
Let me ask you this about attitude. I know, for instance, up at St. Bonaventure, Mark Schmidt actually asked his veteran team, you guys want to play in the NIT? Sometimes it can be a little bit of a letdown if your goal was solidly to be in the NCAA tournament. Tell me about conversations over the last 3 days you guys have had with the players.
Just telling them how amazing this tournament is
and
how prestigious and what an honor it is. I mean, there's probably 2/3 of college basketball that's sitting at home right now not doing anything. So, really just preaching that, teams that do well and succeed in this tournament really set themselves up for next year and years to come.
Yeah, and I don't know if many have looked, and we'll look at brackets in a minute, Rock, but gosh, I look at that. You and I talk about schedules and things like that. You take almost any 5 out of this NIT bracket, put them in your non-conference schedule, and you're set. Your strength of schedule. This is a good field.
Yeah, you got a bunch of Power 5 teams, a bunch of teams who've won their league. So it's impressive.
Give me one key for tonight.
Rebounding and defending the 3.
Yeah, and they really can score.
Yeah.
They really can score. Is this going to be a big night for Franco?
You hope so. Someone who's not a big guy inside. I mean, he's about 6'6". So you hope a guy like Franco can get in there and be dominant in the paint.
Mike, thanks.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Special guest star on the two-man game.
I loved it. Just dropped in, dropped some knowledge, and then rolled right back out.
Yeah. Well, he's got a real job to do. We don't have real jobs, so we can sit around and shoot the breeze all day.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, talking about the NIT, we'll back up and do a little rehash of the Atlantic 10 tournament in a couple of minutes. But this is going to be a real challenge. And there'll be some news coming out a little later. It's going to be a different looking lineup for the Billikens. So folks, stay on all your social media. It's going to be interesting, and it's going to be a challenge. These two teams are going to get after it tonight. I really think this can be a game. It's not something you'd want to hear in a positive way for the Billikens. I think this could be a game in the 80s.
Oh, yeah. Oh, it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And I think the biggest thing that Mike brought up when is playing this NIT game is just how big it has to be for this coaching staff. I mean, when you look at the roster, Martin Linson and DeAndre Jones, you're losing 2 guys out of the roster. But other than that, maybe there's a couple of transfers happen. But, I mean, any time that they can get this group in the building, which is going to be essentially the same group they have next year, that's a huge step for them. And so I love that they took the opportunity with the way the practice schedule has been for them lately. They haven't had the chance to really drill in with these guys certain concepts. And so I love the fact that they got a little bit of time to work with the players in a better environment with a game that still has some heft to it in the NIT. Travis joined us on Carricker and Smallman on 101 ESPN earlier today, and he talked about that crazy lineup. You have a 6'6" center, you have a 20-point wing scorer, and the biggest thing that jumped out to me that he mentioned, because I'm a nerd like this, is he mentioned that this is the first team that SLU's ever going to see this year where the bigs or where the guards screen for the bigs more often. And I think that's going to be a fascinating little thing to watch throughout the game.
Yeah, and the folks around Northern Iowa, what they tell me, the TV guys, I talk to them, one of the things about A.J. Green is the fact that he is comfortable shooting contested threes. So the guy's going to make shots, and you can't let it make you lose focus on what your team defense is supposed to be doing. And that's what happens a lot. Obviously, you focus on the league player of the year, but you can't lose the rest of it. I also think the Billikens can get out in transition on Northern Iowa. But that goes back to what Mike Wilson was saying, getting the rebounds. If you control the boards, especially on the defensive end, you can get out in transition. Because I don't think their defensive transition is as tough as we've seen from some other schools.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I mean, the A-10, you talk about some good defensive schools. The A-10 has it in spades in a lot of ways. And I think the other thing you mentioned with Mike was the expectation for Francis Okoro. I mentioned it kind of in my previous statement. Noah Carter is their big man with Northern Iowa. They play 5 out, but he's 6'6". So the reason why you asked him and why it was a pointed question about Francis Okoro isn't just because he's been playing so well the last couple of games. It's just because when you look at a 3-inch difference and the fact that Francis Okoro has been able to play so well against guys bigger than him at times this season, it makes you think that's a matchup they have to attack. And we talked about this in a previous episode. I would expect 3 or 4 of the first 5 or 6 possessions to be entry passes inside to Francis Okoro, early hook shot, and get him going. Because if he starts dominating Carter offensively and on the boards early, that's going to be a huge boost for SLU.
Yeah, one other tip, too. So people just to get a real understanding of what they're going to look at. Carter's 6'6", but he's also 230.
Yeah, he's a big
so
guy.
That's how he scores, and he can step out and shoot it, but he's 230. Think of Fred Thatch, but 6'6".
Yeah, we know what Fred Thatch can do when he wants to get stuff done in the paint too.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's going to be real interesting matchup tonight. You know, we go back to the setup. The prelude to this was the conference tournament. The Bills got their first 2 wins. We're playing pretty well. Travis told me earlier today that he thought it was the best 3 consecutive games of defense that the Bills had played all year. They had a very fortunate win against St. Bonaventure, had a chance to win at the end and didn't. And then I think got a little bit unlucky on Saturday in the semifinals. Some things just didn't work for the Bills that day. And Richmond got hot at the right time, and their experience showed.
Yeah, I mean, the way that they were just able to run them out of the gym again. I mean, just the shooting they have it's ridiculous. I mean, it's why I'm picking them, kind of getting into bracket talk. It's why I'm picking them to kind of upset a couple teams this year, because when their shooting gets going, they blow teams off. They blow the doors off teams, and that's kind of what happened. It was again, obviously credit to them for hitting their shots, but it was also St. Louis, letting them have the exact shots that they wanted, that they got previously in the season when they walloped them. It was a rough game. It wasn't the best game defensively, but at the same time, it was just another situation where in the first 10, 12 minutes, they just hit shots you weren't expecting, and then it just, the ball got rolling and it kept on going.
I said Richmond. I meant Davidson. Richmond and Davidson met for the final. Richmond, the hot team. Richmond did what St. Louis did in 2019. 4-4, win a game late, and it was their night. And I think that if Richmond doesn't win the championship game, A-10 probably was a 1-bid league. What's interesting is, did Richmond take Dayton's spot, or was Dayton not going to get in anyway? I think those are just probably unanswerable questions. Nobody in the committee is ever going to tell you. But they took somebody's slot.
I think Richmond saved the A-10 on that one. I think Dayton was going to be was going to get kind of pushed out either way, and so that was kind of a good way for it to be. It was kind of the perfect way we talked about earlier. We didn't see it breaking that way. Davidson making the run, still being able to make it after losing in the championship game. We didn't think it would break that way. It ended up, going that way for the A10, so obviously good for the conference. But again, just that's why I got Davidson winning. I think I might have him winning in 2 rounds in my main bracket, because my thought process going into that game was they're not going to have another game where they just shoot the living daylights out of the ball and have those stretches where it's just, can they miss a freaking shot? And that's the kind of team that pisses off and ruins people's days in the tournament. And so if they can keep this streak of shooting going, they're gonna ruin some people's days.
Yeah, and let's go back. I already lost a couple of games in the NIT, and it just shows you there is a difference between the Big 5, Big 6, if you want to even say Big 7 conferences, and the mid-majors. Being a mid-major honk, I had Belmont over Vanderbilt in the Battle of Nashville. Nope, Vanderbilt won. I had Santa Clara over Washington State. Nope, Washington State won. There is a difference, but the mid-majors got to keep scheduling the big boys. They got to keep scheduling, and they got to make their road tougher and harder in the non-conference so that when the tournaments roll around, they're ready for it.
So overall, do you think, take away how they actually went out, do you think the A10 as a whole did a good enough job this season, scheduling-wise, to prepare themselves for the way you think they have to? Especially the top teams, VCU, Dayton, Davidson, St. Louis, so on.
They got the schedules right, but they didn't win enough of them.
Games, exactly.
And that's what you have to do. By the way, nobody fills out an NIT bracket except me.
I love that, though.
Obviously, I have SLU winning, but my NIT Final Four, Oregon, Oklahoma, Iona, and SLU.
Yeah, you give Rick Pitino some time to focus in on some game plans. That's going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I got him beating Florida and Xavier and Dayton.
Ooh, that's going
and we got to see Iona up close. If that got to that, where Dayton and Iona would play, what a great game that would be.
Yeah, I'll watch that game. I'll watch that game, absolutely.
So if you folks want to start booking flights and stuff, assuming everybody else does their job, SLU will play in Provo against BYU on Saturday and then go to Dallas. I think it'll be the 23rd to play SMU in Dallas, and then we'll go to New York. So start planning your spring break flights accordingly.
There you go. And hey, just I can't wait till the NIT Final Four is in St. Louis once they move it out of Madison Square Garden.
Well, I'll probably be too busy in the NCAA tournament. That'll be nice.
That's fair.
It'd be nice.
Exactly. Yeah, it'd be nice.
Oh, so you want to take a quick look? I'm already 0-2 in my big dance bracket, by the way. I missed both games yesterday. How about that? And again, even though Wyoming does have football, maybe not the biggest time football, but has football, I had Wyoming over Indiana, and I had in a pick'em, I had Corpus Christi over Texas Southern, and 0 for 2.
Sorry, I'm dying live on video right now.
Well,
that was bad. I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening to me.
You're verklempt. It's March Madness. You're verklempt.
I have no idea what's happening. My voice
is gone
right now.
So tonight, Rutgers and Notre Dame in Dayton, and Wright State and Bryant. I took Wright State, playing closer to home. Should be a good crowd for Wright State. And then Notre Dame and Rutgers. Away from Rutgers, I think they're more beatable. Notre Dame had some really good moments. Mike Bray is a terrific coach. I took Notre Dame over Rutgers tonight. Did you have an opinion?
My only opinion, as my voice has now returned, mostly there it is. My opinion is that pretty much every team in the play-in games got screwed because even if you won, you're in Dayton, you got a ridiculous flight out to your regional. Indiana didn't get to fly out until 4:30 a.m. this morning, and they got to play tomorrow. I mean, it was just I hate the way that they've done the play-in games. I think, first of all...
How would you do it?
I mean, first of all, I think I'd have it be all 16s instead of having the 12s and the 11s in there, because I think
I
that
agree.
teams like
I agree.
because yeah, you're right. You can't fix the scheduling, but teams like Rutgers and Indiana and Wyoming, the way they've played, if they're an 11 seed or a 12 seed, then they shouldn't have that kind of scheduling issue just thrown at them. I mean, I think there's got to be some level to, if top seeds get to pick their spot, then 12 seeds should, not get completely screwed by a flight schedule. And obviously it
Yeah.
would suck to be a 16 seed, but we're talking about, you know, Big Sky Conference kind of, it's just, you have to. I understand somebody's going to get screwed somewhere. But if you're going to have the play-in games, it just seems like a weird format. I'm disappointed because I thought Rutgers, not just play-in game. If they're anywhere on the East Coast, I would have had them win the first round because the way they just play when they're closer to home. But,
Yeah.
So that one disappointed me because I loved Rutgers potentially, and then I would have had Wyoming win that first round had they been the game that would win. And if they didn't have, I believe, a flight from Dayton to Portland, whoever the winner was. And so that just kind of bummed me out because I liked both those teams as potential kind of lower seed upsets, and just the logistics of it all just completely took them out of consideration in my mind.
Yeah. I think they wouldn't say it this way, but in a cynical fashion, well, you should have been better.
Yeah. And that's, I suppose there's a level to that in all of this. And so, that's, like I said, that's how, certain teams always seem to end up in a regional that really fits their, home market.
You got your bracket in front of you, or do you have it memorized on your picks?
I have it pretty well memorized. I have my big games memorized.
Yeah, I tried to pick, I'm going to, like I got Boise State over Memphis. That's going to be really hard. You got two lottery picks playing against you. But I like the way Boise's playing, and Memphis is up or down, and you never know. I could easily see Memphis coming in and rolling. I really could. But I took Boise State there. So there are games like that I have. I have a 10-7 upset Davidson over Michigan State. That one scares me because it's Tom Izzo time of the year, right?
Yeah, but remember, Tom Izzo time is either really short or really long.
Very true. Not a lot of early. Another 10-7 Loyola over Ohio State.
Yep. And actually, my favorite 10-7 that I wanted to talk to you about is San Francisco over Murray State. It sucked that it had to be Murray State in the 7 spot. I kind of hate when they schedule the 7-10s or the 5-12s with, two of the non-Power 5 schools playing each other. I hate when they do that, but that's just how they're going to play. That's how they're going to play their game. I understand that now. But that's my favorite one just because I've been loving watching San Francisco. You watch a lot of West Coast basketball. I'm going to turn this into a very Homer conversation because Todd Golden is one of the leading candidates for the Missouri job, or so it's being reported as that's who the search committee is focusing in on. So I love San Francisco. I think they're going to win a couple games, and I love Todd Golden.
I am not an expert on their personnel. I've seen them probably play a half a dozen times, but I sit and watch. I don't take notes, that sort of thing. But I like the way they play. They play hard. They play efficient. They play fast. And I love his sideline demeanor. You can tell that his players are engaged. They're absolutely engaged in the game plan and execution. And you can see his sideline relationship with them is really pretty special. I just like the way they play.
Yeah, I love the way they play. I love the way they move the ball. He has a very efficient, kind of very modern offense. They play 4 out. The way they use the big man though is it's not a wasteful way to use the big man. He screens, he passes, he shoots a little bit. I love that about San Francisco. It's why I have them kind of in going, I think, 2 rounds in. Overall, I think the craziest thing about this bracket that kind of shocked me and kind of disappointed me is that this is a year. I think the 14s and the 13s are almost better than the 12s in some of these instances.
Interesting.
I liked those matchups. I had Vermont. I have Vermont and South Dakota State. Both.
Look at you
beating their 4s. I love those matches. I think Vermont could be dangerous. These first couple rounds.
Yeah. Well, I've got Arkansas going pretty deep, so I've got them over them. But Vermont's playing very well.
Yeah, they are.
And they're not. I don't think they're overwhelmed in the situation.
And the one thing I really hope happens, I love that they did this. Elite Eight in the West, potentially Texas Tech versus Gonzaga. The number one defense by pretty much every metric against the number one offense by pretty much every metric. God, if there's one game we get in the tournament this year, I hope it's Texas Tech, Gonzaga, West Elite Eight. I would love that.
I'm thinking like you because that's who I have there.
I just want to see that matchup. Unmovable object, whatever the phrase is, I'm blanking on it right now. I would love that one absolutely. That's been my biggest one ever since I filled out the bracket of matchups I'd love.
Here's a prelude to that if it would work out. Davidson winning and playing Duke. Chip on their shoulder, little Davidson College in North Carolina. If they could win and then play Duke and beat Duke for the rest of time of human existence, Davidson fans would lord it over the Duke fans. We ended Krzyzewski.
Oh,
they would never let him live it down ever. Am I right?
Oh God, no! That would be forever. It would never go away.
It'd be great.
I would kind of love that. I wanted to put that as happening. Oh my God, I did put that as happening. So I have Davidson beating Duke in that game.
So we're thinking alike.
I put it there. I honestly didn't think I'd pull the trigger on that one.
And then once we get to the Sweet 16, I've got some teams that I put a little asterisk by them because I didn't feel good about the pick, and there's some other ones that could make a run. So next week when we get together, we can break that down. But yeah, out of those first round games, those are some of the ones that I like. It's not really an upset. 8-9s are not upsets. Those are pickups. I got TCU beating Seton Hall. Let me see if I have anybody else interesting.
Rammer, I just realized I only have 3 Big Ten teams making it out of the second round, and I have 3 Big Ten teams in my Final Four.
Wow.
I have Purdue, Iowa, and Illinois in my Final Four.
Wow. Well,
it's a gauntlet of a league.
I'll tease my Final Four, and then when reality sets in the next couple of weeks, we can get after it. But I've got Gonzaga, Arizona, Purdue, and Kansas.
We have the same semifinal in Gonzaga, Purdue, and then I got Illinois, Iowa on the other side.
Yeah, boy, Illinois, a rematch of Illinois and Arizona. That'll be a special game to watch if it happens.
Illinois, Arizona rematch, and then Illinois, Iowa, the next one, and obviously another Big Ten, just like slog fest. Two of the potential players of the year, in Murray and Coburn. This tournament's going to be so much damn fun. Obviously there's a lot of Texas A&M and people like that might have their complaints, but it's about to be Thursday and I don't care anymore.
Hey, let's hit a couple quick things on the NBA because we got to get to work. Everybody's giving me the stink eye here, tying up press row.
Oops.
The story won't go away because he's performing, and I'm talking about Kyrie Irving.
Of course. It's hard not to. I mean, that was unbelievable. Also, pulling a guy out who has 60 points with 8 minutes left is a crime against basketball, and I won't stand for it.
Well, it's also understanding we're good. We know it. We're not worried about individual numbers. We're just going to stomp you. And so in a kind of a flip of that, I think it's good.
That's fair. It was just, it's incredible what he's able to do. And I was looking at the all-time leading, single game scoring list for the Nets. It's him, then Darren Williams, and then one other player, and then Kevin Durant from like 2 weeks ago is number 4. So it's just, their ability to score when both those guys are healthy, and if Kyrie can get everything figured out with the COVID protocols for the playoffs, it doesn't matter what seed they're going to be.
Here's the thing. Does the NBA, and maybe they're already doing it behind the scenes, doesn't the NBA have to step in and talk to the people in New York? Say, look, we got fans right behind the bench, right next to the players that don't have to be masked. We got visiting players coming in that don't have to be vaxxed. I said vaxxed. But our guy doesn't get it, at this point in time, with what we know, it doesn't make any sense, and it seems punitive.
That doesn't make a lot of sense logically, but here's a logical thing that does make sense. David Stern taught Adam Silver everything he knows, and once or twice, the NBA made some moves to make sure that certain franchises in the New York area did very well. And I think Adam Silver learned that lesson right, and they might not be the Knicks, but the Nets are your New York franchise right now, and yes, Adam Silver's he'll pull some strings, he'll push some pins, and they'll figure out a way to kind of cover it up. And we don't need to do this thing right now in these kind of jobs or something like that. I agree, it's probably going to get pulled. Kyrie Irving's playing in the playoffs for home games in Brooklyn, absolutely 100%. I would be floored if it doesn't happen.
And what if you get to the playoffs and the Nets don't make it? This is something I would do. I'm a little bit of a crap disturber, as you know. If it was still on, I'd go ahead and play him. Is the mayor actually going to send the cops onto the floor and arrest him?
Oh,
would they?
Yeah,
I'd just defy the order.
That is a perfectly 80s 90s NBA move, and I want it to happen so badly. That is something that you would have told me 5 years ago when we were sitting in the studio. You'd be like, "You ever hear that story when Jeff Van Gundy just put his player on the floor and they called the cops on him anyhow, or something like that?"
It'd be great.
That's so quintessentially late 80s, early 90s NBA. So I hope they do that. I might not agree with Kyrie Irving on a lot of things, but gosh damn it, that's the best handle I've ever seen in my entire life. He's a magician. And we might have lost Bob. Oh, it looks like we lost Rammer, everybody. So we'll see if Rammer reconnects here in just a moment. But that was probably going to be it. Like he said, he's catching a little shrift on the sidelines right now at Chaifetz Arena because we're cutting into the pregame time. They're about an hour and 20 minutes from tipping off at Chaifetz. St. Louis Billikens versus Northern Iowa. That's the Panthers in the first round of the NIT. If you leave right now, you can still get down there with plenty of time to watch the pregame festivities. It's going to be a great game. Like we said, it's going to be a little bit of a different matchup than we've ever seen for St. Louis this year. So if you're a big Billiken fan, it's going to be a different game that we don't really expect. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we're going to be back here on the two-man game here on Claibs Online in just a couple days. We'll talk about St. Louis's NIT game. We'll talk a little bit as the tourney gets rolling here over the weekend. And then always we'll talk a little bit of NBA. So that is the two-man game for Bob Ramsey. I'm Matt Rocchio. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Big thanks to Claibs Online. Big thanks to our sponsors, as always, Royal Banks of Missouri and Munganast. Check them out if you are looking for a car or looking for repairs for your car. They're the best. I trust them with all of my services. Thank you very much again to our listeners. And for Bob Ramsey, live from Chaifetz Arena, I'm Matt Rocchio. This has been the two-man game on Claibs Online.
St. Louis Acura is the only Acura dealer in the nation to win the Precision Team Award for 30 years. How do we do it? By making you, our customers, our number one priority. As others increase their fees and take advantage of limited inventory, we keep our prices low because we remain committed to becoming better than ever and treating you as we want to be treated. We want you coming back and sending your friends and family to a veteran-owned, family-based business you can trust. St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.